And the idea is that the recording will be on the on our YouTube channel for this. So if anybody objects, I can shut the recording down, or if anything, I can pause it. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. This is our summer workshop. Thanks to Lauren, who is to my, I don't know where she is. She's up in the upper left-hand corner. She's got that box here that we're co-organizing this session. And I'd like everybody welcome Dr. Tammy Katsabian, who's to my, I guess, to my Zoom left there. I'm not sure how she's arranged on the scale. So welcome, Tammy. And Tammy is currently a Fulbright Fellow and postdoc at Harvard. And she completed her PhD at Hebrew University last year, right? And has done, and I hope I don't butcher your degrees. I know you've done an LLM at Yale and an LLB at Tel Aviv. Is that correct? Yeah. And so she's taking the time. As I say, it's easy for us to zoom in. She's going to be doing the hard work today, but hopefully we can give her some good questions and feedback on her paper entitled Labor, Technology, and Flexibility. And this is based on your dissertation. Is that correct? Well, let me pass it over to you. So welcome to our series. And I think, Lauren, did you want to set further ground rules? We usually have the speaker talk for about 20 minutes or so, but feel free to speak as long as you'd like. And I think we usually plan to go on for about an hour.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay.
I think that sounds good. And I think we can just use the hand raising feature, or if we stay small, maybe people can just raise their hands. I'm fine with either. Sure.
And I'm going to unmute myself. I'm going to mute myself.
But now
Tammy, I forgot to ask. Yeah, sorry. I forgot to ask. Did you have a PowerPoint or anything?
Yes, I do, and I will share it with you now.
Okay, so
I thought we will have. Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. I guess I need to give you
the permission to upload it.
Yeah, I should have done this before, and I wasn't on the ball. But I think I can make you the co-host, and then you can share the PowerPoint with us.
Good.
So you should be co-host now.
I'm not sure. Let's see how it goes. Whether I can actually share it. Let's see. Yeah, I think I am able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you just go to share screen. Okay, there you go. Okay, great.
So we can start. Perfect.
Okay, wonderful. And then I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, so thank you again for having me today and for this opportunity. I will start with an apology. First of all, I'm coming from Israel and I have a very heavy Hebrew accent, so I apologize ahead. And I'm also coming from labor law, so it means that I have I think my main perspective on this question is a labor law perspective and less technology perspective. So I'll be more than happy to have your comments in this regard. So let's just start. So I assume some of you have read the paper. I thought we will have something like 30 minutes of talking presentation, but I will make it short. I will make it only 20 minutes. So the main idea of the paper is to observe various phenomena in the labor field, in the digital reality, and to search for the organizing logic. The main argument is that the digital reality has enabled different entities, and we can see the references of Zygmunt Bauman and Emmanuel Costel, two very important sociologists. The main argument is that the digital reality has enabled different entities, particularly the employer, to strengthen the concept of flexibility, fragility, and fluidity in the labor field. It has made basic definitions of protections in labor more flexed and blurred. In other words, in today's world, technology can be used and is used in order to challenge and distort many of the basic labor laws protections. So to clarify my argument, I will concentrate on two concrete examples. First, the boundaries between the private sphere and the public sphere. The second example is the limitation of time and space. The third is the traditional employment relationship. And the fourth example will be the relationship between employees within the workplace. I think I will skip the fourth example. Thereafter, I will offer some initial directions of models of regulation. But the main idea, all those examples are made in order to show us how the labor field is becoming more flexible, more fragile, and more violates more labor rights. But before I'll start, some initial clarifications. So first of all, since the existence of labor laws employers have tried to challenge labor laws protections, and we're not arguing that this is a new phenomenon. However, as I will try to show, the digital reality seems to have amplified this phenomenon in recent years and has generated more flexibility in diverse aspects and various forms of work. This constant flexibility is not necessarily a negative thing that only exploits employees and violates their rights. Sometimes the challenging of labor laws' basic concepts can be beneficial for the employees. However, the main argument that is in most cases, it is not. And lastly, and you know better than me about it as technology scholars, technology is not deterministic. The fact that the workplace is becoming more flexible in specific ways rather than others is the result of technology, economy, the law, and so on. So we'll start with the first case, the privacy and the limitations between the private sphere and the public sphere. So usually when we think about the right to privacy, we think about a clear distinction between what the employer can and should know about the employee, professional matters, and between what the employee can keep to herself. First, employers have always wanted to broaden the boundaries of information they can obtain about their employees, but technology made it much more easier for them. So the first and most obvious, I think, threat to the right to privacy in the digital reality is the will of the employer to supervise their employees, that has always existed, along with the various new sophisticated methods of supervision which are available to employers today. AI technology has dramatically perfected employers' ability to supervise employees. Employers usually use AI as part of the recruitment process to vet large private amount of candidates' information. AI programs can collect all or nearly all the available online data on the candidates, regardless of when it was created, and even if it is a nuanced piece of information related to something the candidate did in her youth. AI make it possible to analyze this vast amount of information and draw seemingly professional conclusions from it about the professional characteristic and capabilities of the candidate. So this is obvious, but to this we need to add social media sites and the activity of the employee herself. So numerous people participate today on social media sites. They tend to share more private aspects of their lives and to post much authentic information about themselves. At the same time, as a result of many cognitive biases, people don't fully understand that this information can be easily forwarded and reach the employer or the future employer in 10 years from now. But now in sociology, we define it as the privacy paradox. Later on, as I said, the employer can easily access this information, this online information, even if it was uploaded 10 years ago by using AI, and learn about the employees or the candidate's private life, private habits, etc. Finally, the ability and the interest in monitoring and supervising employees in the digital reality and to blur the limitations between the private sphere and the public sphere is not limited to the employer and the workplace context only. The well-known phenomenon of online shaming generated new and informal forms of social control. In online shaming, many new actors shame a person for supposedly private poor behavior and spread the shaming all over the net. Following this, the real supervisor, meaning the employer, is often compelled by the mass shamers to act immediately and dismiss the problematic employee for her private behavior. So because of all of these phenomena, the distinctions between what is perceived as public and what is perceived as private has been shaken in digital reality. And the privacy, I think the privacy example is particularly interesting because it demonstrates that it's not only about technology. Employers use technology to more extensively supervise their employees and gather information about candidates. In parallel, forces of commerce, social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, and social tendencies as the shaming phenomenon also use technology in a way that blurs the boundaries between the private between the professional and the private. So this is the first example. The second example deals with working time. So again, in labor law, the basic premise is that the employees are supposed to be subordinated to the employer's will and to conduct work only during their working time, their official working time. The digital reality and mainly information communication technology, ICT, has modified the basic idea of time and its limitation in the labor field. This is since ICT enables employees to easily receive information and transfer it to the workplace and to be available for work tasks outside of the workplace. And I think the best example for that is the COVID-19 and the fact that we are all becoming teleworkers from home in this crazy period. So as a result of that, work is no longer bound to a single concrete place. It can be conducted from any place at any time. ICT has done so in the concrete case of formal telework and the new widespread form of non-formal telework. So in formal telework, the term teleworkers refer to employees who have a formal agreement with their employers that explicitly enables them to conduct some of the works outside of the office at their preferred time and location. It is a growing phenomenon around the world, as I said earlier, especially today due to the COVID-19. Now, teleworkers supposedly work the same number of hours at home as they would have in the office. In practice, however, research shows very clearly that formal teleworkers often substitute time from leisure to production, and the telework leads to an extension of total working hours without acknowledging it. Following this, the traditional boundaries in labor law between work and leisure and between working time units and leisure and rest time units are becoming flexible and amorphous in the case of formal telework. The second case is sporadic working hours and being constantly available to work. So due to the common use of smart devices that can be used today, both for work and entertainment, the concept of telework has changed today. It has additional dimensions, it is less organized, and it is much more ad hoc in its nature. This sort of telework is reflected most of all, and we can all identify with it, I think, by employees' tendency to constantly check emails on their cell phones during their supposedly leisure time, or by receiving professional WhatsApp messages and responding to them in the evening or weekends. As a result, this phenomenon has crucial implications on employees' work-life balance and distinctions between work and leisure. But because we are considering numerous sporadic moments that are not included in the formal working hours for which an employee is being paid, calculating and estimating their total number is frequency is extremely difficult. Lastly, it is important to clarify that this sort of non-formal telework has also penetrated the traditional offline labor market. So in this way, even doctors, teachers, and many other employees whose core work involves constant engagement in human interactions and not with computers are also expected to occasionally check professional emails or WhatsApp messages from home and so on. So this example also regarding working time demonstrates how the digital reality blurs the classical distinctions between working time and leisure time for all, not only for people who are working in front of the computer. In addition, and just as with the privacy example, in both formal and informal forms of telework, there are other forces in society that contributes to this phenomenon. Employers are the main economic beneficiaries of this phenomenon, and they signal the workers, sometimes even very explicitly, that they demand and reward constant availability. Moreover, our current capitalist culture encourages this sort of connectivity, be constantly connected to giant high-tech companies, services such as Facebook, WhatsApp, check all the time what is new on your cell phone. FOMO has become a modern disease and it is an integral part of everyday life, including in the workplace context. So these economic and cultural tendencies, along with the technological capabilities of ICT, led to the flexibility of working time and leisure time boundaries. The third example, and I think I will focus on this example and then move to the model of solutions, so we'll have enough time for discussion, is the employment contract. So first of all, it is important to clarify that regardless of the internet, the modern world has brought many new challenges to the labor field and complicated the distinction between an employee and independent contractor. And this distinction is very important because only employees can enjoy the protection of labor law, can enjoy minimum wage, sick days, etc. The digital reality has brought with it growth of flexible and atypical forms of employment, and has even further flexed and blurred the distinctions between employees and independent contractors. The best example is platform-based work. Platform-based work refers to various new forms of work that are distinct outcomes of the digital reality. Some of them are conducted entirely remotely by using the internet, such as in the case of crowdsourcing. Other forms of platform-based work are only ordered online and usually have to be conducted by a specific person in specific location and in specific time, and usually defined as the gig economy or the sharing economy. So in crowdsourcing, the platform enables a company or a private programmer to flexibly choose if and how many workers to have in a specific moment to conduct a certain online task. In a similar manner, the platform enables an amorphous collection of individuals to flexibly choose which task to conduct and their exact work schedule. As a result of that, the concepts and the basics of the traditional employment contract are being disturbed. Seemingly, no one is forced to conduct work during concrete working hours. In a similar manner, in a crowdsourcing, the work is divided into numerous small tasks lasting usually as little as a minute or two, tagging a person, etc., and distributed to numerous workers from all around the world. This is another reason why it is difficult to define this minor ad hoc task that every worker conducted somewhere around the world as part of a distinct employment relationship. And yet, research shows that workers are not truly free to choose their task and working schedules. A rejection of a work by a client in the platform may determine a dramatic loss in one's ranking. Also, the client employer-like company or the platform company are actually the ones which determine the exact duration of deadline of each task. They say if it has to be in 1 day, 1 minute, etc. Besides of that, even though we are dealing with small tasks, it is usually the same worker who does the same work for the same company for several months. So in this way, in crowdsourcing, the platform is used not only to connect the parties, but also to control the workers without defining this connection as some sort of employment relationship. In a very similar manner, in the sharing economy model, the platform is used both, again, to technically connect the driver, for instance, and the client, and also legally disconnect the parties, legally disconnect the connection, the legal connections between the parties, and to control in practice and seemingly uncontrolled the worker. Platform-based work seems to be different from the other forms of work because everyone seems to benefit from this flexibility that the digital reality enabled. However, as I try to show in this example, platform-based work is more complex than it seems at first glance. Ultimately, the workers cannot really enjoy full flexibility because of the power inequality in the labor field, and the platform companies are the primary beneficiaries of this phenomenon. That is exactly why these companies put a lot of effort into preserving the current flexible worker agreements, even at the price of expensive and endless settlements, legal processes or settlements. In the last example, I would just maybe refer to it with the titles. All these phenomena that I refer to so far also enter the workers' community. So since always it was very, very difficult to create a trade union here in the US and also all around the world, but the fact that today the internet is by definition separating people from one another in telework, when people are working from home, or in platform-based work, which in each worker is working in her own car or in her own apartment in front of the computer to conduct a specific task. Or in the case of robots and AI, that we're working together with a robot, or we are working in the warehouse, or we are working together with an algorithm all day long. In all those examples, we can see that people are separated from one another. They're not really communicating with one another. They cannot really create the necessary foundations for a solid, strong trade union. In order to create, sociological research shows that in order to create a strong, solid trade union, you have to have connections between the workers, to meet one another regularly, to create trust and solidarity among the workers and so on. And it's very difficult to create those things when people are isolated and each one is sitting in his own computer or in his own car, etc. So at this stage, I want to refer to the question of regulation. Sorry, and I want to offer 3 optional directions of regulation to this flexibility difficulty that we're facing today in the labor field. 2 of them will focus on the law, and the third on using technology as part of the legal solution. So the first way to handle the flexibility and amorphousness that the digital reality has brought to legal rules and definition is to embrace some aspects of them and interpret the original rules in a flexible manner. So one example for that is and the most well-known example, I think, for that is the contextual approach to the right to privacy, which was developed against the concrete background of the digital reality. So basically, Helen Nissenbaum is the mother of the contextual integrity approach. This method clarifies that in order to decide whether a privacy violation took place or not, we have to consider the concrete rules and the norms that governs the specific scenario in which the information was generated, alongside local and general values and purposes. So we need to interpret privacy not in a general way, but in a flexible manner, because the boundaries between the private sphere and the public sphere of the employees are so flexible today. The same goes regarding the employee category. We need to think on additional categories that would enable platform-based workers some of the protection of labor laws, even if they do not follow all the criteria of being an employee. So in Europe, we have the worker category, which enable people that are somewhere in between employees and independent contractors to enjoy some of the protection of labor law. This solution is more flexible and is sensitive, and it is more adjustable to the digital reality. But it's also less predictable because it's flexible, right? And you can interpret the situation differently in each case. And the legal world, especially labor law, needs stability. So that's why I want to offer, I offer an additional solution to add a procedural layer. So what does it mean to add a procedural layer? Procedural rules can be useful here, mainly because, unlike substantive laws, an additional procedural layer seems to be less influenced by the fast and meaningful changes that labor law is experiencing in the digital reality that led to more flexibility. So for instance, one optional procedural rule focuses on the initial stage of recruiting candidates in the workplace. And I refer here to the use of anonymous CV process. Anonymous CV process, it's common in some countries in Europe, can avoid the current practice of monitoring a candidate's activity on social media sites by using AI. This procedural rule prevents the employer from Googling and tracking a candidate's name before interviewing her, until the stage of the interview, of course, and provides the candidate a real chance to professionally present herself without no prejudgment based on her personal life. Another optional procedural rule that seems to enable a better protection of the right at stake is requiring essential participations of workers in the decision-making processes in the workplace. In this way, for instance, in some European countries, procedural rules regarding the participation of employees' representative in decision-making processes were developed to deal with the blurriness between working time and leisure time. So France was the first European country, and afterwards Italy and Spain joined it as well. It was the first country that required in 2017 that workplaces with more than 50 employees will engage with employees' representative to set clear rules regarding the official working time of the employees and the ability to contact them outside the agreed formal working hours. This procedural rule can assist in dealing with the work-leisure blurriness and in a way which is, oh, sorry, someone wrote something? In a way which is, in a way which is addressed to the employees' real needs and experience. Just skip something because I read the chat. I'm sorry, talking about technology. That's what happens. Oh, for some reason it's stuck. So I will just maybe refer, oh, okay, yes. And the last example is, and I think the most important solution is using technology as part of the solution. So as I said before, technology is not deterministic, so it can be used as part of the solution model to ensure the protection of labor rights in the digital reality. So for instance, when we are dealing with the blurriness between working time and leisure time that digital reality is generated, ICT can be used in order to count all the actual working time of the employee. And it is a tool to protect the employee and not only to blur the distinction between work and leisure. In a very similar way, another way to use ICT to solve the working time difficulty is to prevent the option of working from distance. So this technological solution, it was already in use in Germany in some collective agreements, in the car industry, in Volkswagen, for instance. Some of the employees are only able to receive emails on their cell phones half an hour before and after formal working hours. If you try to send an email after 6 o'clock, the email will be automatically deleted and you'll receive a message saying that please send your email again tomorrow in the formal working hours. And the last solution, and I will end with that, it's online voting. Online voting enable us to create a trade union in today's world. It can assist workers who wish to unionize where they don't have any formal physical workplace to do so. Research shows that online voting can increase the voting percentages in the case of remote workers, such as teleworkers or platform-based workers, since workers do not have to travel to a physical voting place in a specific time in order to vote. So this is it. Thank you very much again for listening, for having me, and I'm very, very curious to hear your comments and your notes here. It's still a work in progress, so every question, note will be extremely helpful. So thank you.
So Tammy, thank you. I think people can unmute themselves and clap or use the clap feature. I'll clap. But thank you. That was a really very stimulating talk. Lavonda sends thank you.